Hey everyone, it's Alec with It Takes Guts. Hope you're all doing well. Today I'm back with more One Piece, chapter 11-16. We got a break next week, so a lot of stuff in this chapter to talk about with everything that's going on with Vegapunk's message, the new Iron Giant revelations, so let's get into this chapter. So to start off, it's a pretty short chapter this week, only 13 pages with a lot of really interesting theories to go off what has been said in this chapter. To start, Vegapunk is still continuing his speech about how the war is still ongoing, from 800 years ago in the Void Century, like we're still fighting this ongoing battle. And with that, he kind of advises about the Mother Flame. He goes back into his creation of infinite energy, how he wanted to kind of stabilize the entire global race under just a one infinite energy source, and that led him to create the Mother Flame. Now he advises the Mother Flame was something that he was very proud of, but that was actually stolen from him about 2 weeks prior to him making that recording. So he knew that York stole the Mother Flame, and York did not know that he knew. So during this chapter, York's kind of freaking out, like, how much did you know? Like, I wasn't syncing my thoughts anymore. Like, I was pretty far away from, like, keeping in information with the rest of the Vegapunk. So how did Stella know that I was doing all of this? How was he already multiple steps ahead of me? But to me, that's just the main Vegapunk for you, you know? He might have created these satellites, but I think the Stella Vegapunk, even though he may have his personalities or mind split apart, he still got some edge above everyone else in the Vegapunk world, to me at least. So I thought that was kind of cool how even though York's part of the Vegapunks, she's still not the Stella Vegapunk who can still pull these little tricks on her to let her know that she's still not everything that he is. Now, while Vegapunk is talking, we get a nice cut over to Emu, which any cut to Emu during this whole speech is always interesting, because out of everyone who knows, they really know, so I always like to see their kind of reactions, or, you know, just trots around the flower garden, really. But today we got to see the image of what appears to be Nefertari D. Lily. Might be Vivi, but I think it might be Lily. I'm not too sure, but regardless, he's just kind of looking up at her during this whole speech like, you messed up all of this for everyone. So I don't really know what the allusion to Lily is during this, but it's probably something to the fact that she messed up early on. She was the one that possibly split all the poneglyphs up, something with Vivi tied to the current day, and just multiple callbacks to Vivi going forward. So I really, I'm really excited to see where Vivi lies in this story, how she's going to get incorporated back into the Straw Hats, how that's going to affect the world government's aim in trying to get her back for Emu specifically. It's hard to know what that will mean, but as they keep flashing over to Emu and keep showing this relation being so closely tied, it really makes me believe that Vivi's going to be a huge main player. I know everyone's saying it as well, but Vivi has to be something really important coming through in these next couple of chapters or arcs for One Piece. Back to what Vegapunk was talking with the ancient weapons he was kind of bringing into the conversation. We see a flash over to Crocodile, which is awesome because that was the first person to even bring the concept of ancient weapons into the story of One Piece. So I always like seeing that we get a nod to Crocodile to show that he's tapped in and he's listening to this message like, oh, everyone's gonna know what I know now, and probably start jumping on the ancient weapon train. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but it's more so crazy that now everyone's learning that Vegapunk basically created an ancient weapon. On top of that, he knows what happened to Lelouchia. He just straight outright says that this light above Lelouchia, and now Lelouchia's gone. And everyone's like, Lelouchia's gone? Like, what? Someone check on that. The king from Providence Land, the King Punch guy is like, someone call Lelouchia. Like, I think that is pretty much one of the biggest, to the One Piece world at least, one of the biggest bombs dropped. Like, oh, by the way, this kingdom's just erased, and I think I know how that happened. One of the things stolen from my lab was probably used, and again, Vegapunk's trying to, kind of cast blame away, but at the same time, last chapter, he already kind of took all the blame for himself, saying that this was my doing, this was my fault, that people are getting destroyed by these ancient weapons because I just wanted to pursue science in a good way, but, York had a different idea. So interesting enough to go and see the world's reaction to Lelouchia being disappeared, and just what that means in general for the global kind of knowledge of One Piece. Like Morgan's, what's he gonna write about with this new news that should be talked about by everywhere? And of course the elders and of course the Marines are probably freaking out now, since that is something you can't just wipe away. That happened. Also, real quick, shout out to Cobra's funeral happening in Alabasta with all the different Alabasta people around and, you know, crying at Vivi's picture, but my favorite panel from it was Pell, because Pell's sitting there looking up at King Cobra like, I took a nuke. What did you take? Like, for some reason when I saw Pell, I was like, this dude's like, you guys actually die in this story? That's funny. I don't know. That's crazy to me. We move forward with the chapter going into the Stussy situation, how last chapter she was going through that crisis and not really sure what her humanity is since Stella's gone, but now she's kind of talking to Edison asking if Kaku can be set free and if he can kind of go back to what he wants to do. Like, he doesn't really know what he wants to do at this point. I mean, what do you do if you're Kaku right now? But I think it's interesting how she basically says, like, I'll make him stop going after the Straw Hats, I'll make sure that doesn't happen, but I want to make sure he's free. And Edison's like, hey, like, I'm sorry, Stussy, like, we kind of messed up your whole thing going on. Like, even though you're a clone, like, you kind of got wrapped up in this. You had to start assassinating your CP0 agents with you, and now that Vegapunk's dead, you kind of lost that sense of self and more or less what to do. And I think it's really interesting how Edison kind of brings it all back and says, hey, like, if you feel remorse and want to let Kaku free, that to me is your duality of morality. You don't know what side to choose. You have feelings in both directions. You want to help both sides. That is your humanity showing. Edison's like, that's how you know that you have a part of humanity inside of you, that decision-making mechanism of what's good and what's bad, and you have remorse, you have regrets, and you want to help, even though those people might not be the best people. Those are your friends you've came up with. How many years have been in CP0 undercover for, you know? How many years you've been with Kaku and Lucy? So I think it's really interesting to see that side and kind of see where Stussy goes from here. I still think she'll probably have like a martyr role in the story. I think she might be one of the reasons the Straw Hats are able to escape Egghead, but interesting to see that brought back, and I really like how they're making Stussy's character fleshed out in this last chunk of the story, because before, I don't know if any of you feel this, but before Stussy, every time I saw her once she was revealed as a clone, I'm not saying her personality fled from me, I'm just saying that it's one of those things where you're like, well, that's cool, but they're not really a character, right? But now, even though we didn't get to meet Buckingham from the actual Rocks Pirates, we're getting to know this clone version of them in this setting, in this environment, which I think is very interesting, and I hope we get a little bit more to kind of tie up this final story of the whole, you know, creation versus control and what that will mean for Stussy. So Vegapunk continues his message explaining his regret and grief for creating the Mother Flame being used for the destruction of the Lucia, understanding his role in this part of this tragedy and that being a really big part and just a heavy weight on his entire situation happening in this video call right now. But it's interesting that he advises that Joy Boy left the ancient weapons for this time. Like, these are passed down through generations. These are the ancient kingdoms, like, trump cards to fight whatever oppressors happening. So it's really interesting to see that, and now it's being used by the other side. It's almost like Joy Boy messed up and left this ancient weapon of Uranus in the wrong hands kind of thing. That's at least what I got from it. So maybe there's more apologies from Joy Boy that he messed up in leaving these ancient weapons in the right hands or in the right places with the right information. I don't know, but I find that very interesting. Now the end of this also ties into the reveal of York finally understanding where the freaking snail is for this conversation that Vegapunk's relaying to the world. So Vegapunk finally taps in, and York taps in and understands that the snail is actually hidden in the Iron Giant, which is, to me, crazy. I didn't really think about that. And some part of me thought about the Iron Giant housing the snail, but I didn't necessarily put one and two together. But it makes sense. The first time we see Vegapunk in the manga is him coming out of the Iron Robot. Like, of course we saw the different versions of Vegapunk, but not Stella himself that was coming out of the Iron Giant. So maybe when he was actually in the Iron Giant, he was placing the transponder snail there, understanding how close this time was for him to get jumped by the world government. I'm not sure that connection, but we finally have an end goal. The Iron Giant is finally in the story, like, fully now as a target, as a main thing happening. So very interested to see what happens next chapter. Will it be a giant, Elder Star brigade against the Iron Giant? Will the Iron Giant show what ancient technology is really about and really kind of blast them all away, or really just start blowing everything up on the other side? I don't know. I'm really interested to see where this goes and what we're going to see with the Elder Stars. If we're going to see more progress from the Straw Hats to get off Egghead. A lot of this information is kind of murky right now, as we're not sure who the main players will be towards the end of this arc, and if the Giants will still be a main portion of this, if Stussy and them will help the Straw Hats, what's really going to happen to get them over to Elbath. So, really crazy part of the story. As I said, only 13 pages with a lot to talk about for everything that's going to happen after this chapter. Break next week, so bear with me. I think we can make it through again. Another one happening probably in the summer, so we can't get too caught up on these breaks, but let Oda cook. Forever thankful for him. Regardless, if you're here, thank you for watching. Appreciate your time. Like the video if you like the video. Give me some comments down there if you want to talk about One Piece in the future of what the story's turning into right now with the end of Egghead. Regardless, you already know, remember, it takes guts to subscribe, so thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.